Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode 300. My voice cracked a little bit there, but yes, it is episode 300. I don't know. It's 300 episodes. We've been here before and we'll be here again. So, yeah, I mean, it's great. Glad to be here. Thank you for everyone who has stuck with us, who has joined us along the way. We are so thankful that you are part of, that we get to be part of your week. This is a pleasure and a joy for us to do. And we are so glad that you want us to be along with you in that as well. And so it's not just me, DBQ Hams, along with you tonight. It is also Taomaster99. Tao, how are you?
I'm doing well. Why is 300 so scary, though? Can you tell
I
me
don't know.
that?
I mean, because it's probably easier on the balance levels than going. So, I was trying to get excited about it without spiking the volume channels
Oh,
there. So,
I appreciate it.
no problem. So yes, and thank you for recording tonight as well. No, 300 should not be scary. It is not the year 2000. Right? It's also just a round number. When you go by weeks and there's 52 in a year, round number looks nice, but it's not like, this is a foil embossed holographic cover, issue number 300 of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is just episode 300. So, this is episode 300 for July 23rd. Taomaster and I are here tonight. Game Logic is out, which is great. He has been running the boards, keeping us all on task and moving forward. So, I'm glad that he gets a chance to take a step back and take care of some things as well. Oh, we got some games to talk about. For last week, we had such a jam-packed news story night with the decision around the FTC and Microsoft Activision Blizzard merger. And tonight, this week, it feels just kind of like maybe light on the news stories, but that's okay. We'll see where we go with it. And in true E2KG fashion, we'll probably get a lot more discussion on it than we think at this point in time. But first, as we kick into our main games, our new games, Tao, why is there a game from 2013 on your new list? How does Project Zomboid get on your list, and how does it take over your gaming week?
Yeah, so I saw this game a lot. I always see it on Steam, like not necessarily maybe on sales, but just like kind of on their little like quick little board where you kind of scroll through different games that they have. And I always thought it was a newer game, like maybe 2, 3, 4 years old at the most. But yeah, 2013 this one first came out, and like I said, seen it on Steam. I've seen other people and other Discord channels talking about it. So once again, I thought it was a fairly new game. So I decided, a couple weeks ago, or a few weeks ago now, actually, because I forgot about vacation. It did go on sale, so I was like, I'll take it. I'll take a chance on it, and I bought it. And I didn't play too much of it this past week, but I did want to throw it up there just because it was something new, other than my normal games that I usually play.
New for you is what you're saying.
Well, new for me, yeah.
So how does it play out? So 2013, I mean, does it feel like it has been, like the interface has been upgraded since then, that the onboarding for a new player, or is it still pretty much the same game and that the community has just kind of continued to run with it?
They do have a tutorial, so you can do a tutorial if you want. It's optional. You don't have to do it. Kind of like most games actually nowadays, kind of just throw you into one. So I did do that because I was like, so did a little backstory before that. It's an isometric view. It's a zombie survival game. You're in, I believe, Kentucky. I think, or most of the maps, locations where you can pick are in, or just Kentucky, and you can do like mods and stuff. There's actually a mod section in the menu, so I'm sure there's all kinds of other things you can do. But just plain vanilla game, you pick your map, you pick the kind of person you want to be. So they have a bunch of different jobs, like fireman, cooker, cook, fisherman, carpenter. So, and they all have their different traits. Obviously, carpenter can do is a little bit better building, and policeman has better weapons, or at least long range and just kind of firearms abilities, stuff like that. and then you jump into the world, and it's an isometric view, so it's kind of top down at an angle, and you just kind of go in house to house, basically scrounging, and obviously you can build. At some point, I didn't get that far. I actually died a lot. So well, actually, it's kind of funny with the tutorial too, because you die at the end. Like there's nothing you can do about it. There's just like a horde of zombies that surround you, and I think I have a shotgun or something they give you, just to teach you the weapons, at least the firearm type of weapons. But I'm assuming at some point I would have run out of rounds, but they just overwhelmed me anyways. I couldn't take them all on. So I played a little. I did the tutorial, I finished that, and then I played maybe about a half hour after that. And like I said, I just kept dying. So you die, and then you just got to restart after that. And, kind of like a roguelite or something like that. So I have to. This is a game where I'm gonna have to just sit down and like you know spend some time, like some serious time, trying to figure it out, everything. And just the controls, you got to use the mouse for everything, and not necessarily movement. Movement actually is the WASD, so that's nice. So I don't have to do that. But when you're doing the combat, you kind of have to like you can scroll around with the mouse and click, and it's a little weird. Like, and you can zoom in and out. You can zoom in fairly close, but then there's like I don't know. So I looked at my graphics settings too, and it looked like everything was at ultra, obviously, because this is a 2013 game. So I'm not having any problems there. But when I'm in the houses, sometimes like stuff disappears, so then I can't tell like where a window or a door is. Like if I want to try to escape from zombies, because once like the zombies come, like even if it's just one or two, then eventually there's gonna be like a whole horde that comes at you. So I'm gonna have to try to figure out all that, or maybe I'm just zooming in too much. Maybe I can't zoom in that much, so just stuff kind of disappears out of the screen, which is kind of stinks. But like once again, it's an old game, so I don't know if they're still doing updates or not. Like I said, there's a big mod section there, so I'm assuming obviously people can try to fix it on their own. But it's interesting so far.
So is it in the survival aspects? Does it end up being like in the kind of crafting survival genre in terms of that? Like 2013, Rust was out at that time. I mean, is it in that kind of more hardcore survival type of genre, or does it feel more like almost like a CRPG, action RPG kind of because of the isometric with the zombie setting?
Yeah, I don't know how deep this crafting goes, or how much that is in the game, because even when I finally started the game, like most of the stuff I found is just like kind of sitting there, like food and even like weapons and stuff. I didn't find any guns yet, but I just found like hammers and like a saw and stuff like that, and it was already just there. So I don't know how deep that goes. I think it might lean more into the building part of it. Just kind of fortifying yourself into an area or into a house. And as far as I could tell, you can just roam around and like enter any house, as long as obviously there's no zombies, or at least a horde of zombies in there. So it'll be interesting to see how the crafting, if there is even crafting, because they didn't really mention anything in the tutorial, which I would have thought they would have. So I'm not sure how deep that goes as far as the crafting side, but it's even with the weapons, like it took me a little bit to get used to them aiming with the mouse once again, just because it's not first person, it's isometric. So you can see there's like a little circle that appears on the ground, so you can see that. But sometimes if there's a lot of people, or a lot of zombies I should say, in the screen, or just other objects and stuff, sometimes I lost that. So like once again, I think that might have been just I was zoomed in too much. I might have to back up a little bit and kind of survey the area instead of being so close in, because I think you can do that in The Sims too, if I remember correctly. You can zoom in and out like that, so kind of makes
Yeah,
sense.
in The Sims, so you could definitely do that in terms of coming back in and out.
Yeah,
So
Sims seems a little more stable though. I don't remember there's so much like stuff disappearing. Like obviously there's walls and stuff that kind of go invisible or intangible a little bit. So you can
well,
see
I
it,
mean,
but
and let's also say The Sims is an EA, there's a large studio behind it
yeah,
versus this looking at the studio is the Indie Stone,
yeah,
relatively small team. It looks like they're still supporting it. It's still a listed game. There's not a whole lot else that they have listed that they're doing at this point, at least kind of digging around online.
yeah.
So
Yeah, but that's definitely something I wanna keep on and keep going. And it looks like you can kind of get, you can like go into your character and kind of like tweak him. That was one thing I didn't do when I first jumped in, which is maybe that's what I should do. I think you can kind of like take stuff off of different traits and put into something else and stuff like that. I just was like, all right, it's default. I'm just going to go in and go. So that might have been part of my mistake too. But and then there's even like different. I think they call them challenges, but basically they're different scenarios that you can pick before you start the game. Like I think the first one was your house is on fire and I think you're kind of injured. So when I first went in there, like I clicked on it, I didn't really, and I was just kind of reading through the different ones. And I was like, all right, I'll do this later. But evidently, if you just click on it, like it just keeps that whatever you picked on. So I picked the one with the fire, so I started off in the fire. I was like, what's going on? And then I died right away because I was like, I got just burnt up. But it's interesting.
All right. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking through articles about this. Like, there's been a lot of stuff over the years around it. Before release, where they were burglarized and lost some code. Like, there's a number of different pieces here with the studio and the game and the mod support within it over the years. So great. It's wonderful to discover something like that, like something that has this long of a long tail longevity to it, and that the community has continued to find ways to make it fresh and new and continue to engage with. So
Yeah, like I said, I'm assuming it's like I said, it's always on the Steam store, so obviously there's a big following, so that must be doing pretty well.
all right, well, we're going to move from a 10-year-old game to a game that is not yet released, and this is Ubisoft's The Crew Motorfest. This weekend they had their closed beta. I had a chance to play it on a PlayStation 5. So look, here's some context. Let's start there. No, right. Like, the short of it is, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And also, it's a lot like Forza Horizon. Like, that's not bad. Forza Horizon is a very solid formula. And it is not available on PlayStation platforms. So I could see the logic of trying to create something similar. I remember playing The Crew 2. The Crew 2 takes place kind of across the United States. You have street racing, you have motorboats, and you also have planes in The Crew 2. All of those are here in The Crew Motorfest, but that's not really the focus. It is set on Hawaii. It is set on an island, and it is very similar to the setup of the last two, let's say, maybe even three Forza Horizons, in terms of this is a festival. And you're coming in and there are tents and there are like banners up, and you are here to have a map populate with all kinds of festival activities for you to go do. And different types of things. You have street racing, rally racing, you have track racing, you have in the beta there are not boats and planes, but they are part of the game, but they seem to be de-emphasized, which is really solid. I mean, I think the biggest takeaway for me from this compared to The Crew 2 is that the racing feels solid. I felt like in The Crew 2, the street racing felt a little laggy, a little clunky, and this feels really smooth. It is pretty fluid. I fired up Forza Horizon 5 this weekend as well, just to give a comparison. There's definitely a little more finesse and nuance in Horizon compared to Motorsport and The Crew, but The Crew is also designed to be a little more arcadey. Like, there is actually you have a handbrake to be able to pivot on a corner tightly. It's not necessarily a good idea to do, but it's there. So it is. I had a lot of fun with it. I guess I was really surprised, but the more I played, the more it felt like Horizon, to the point where, like, your AI navigator still has that kind of cheery, British European accent to it that really, the more I drove around, it very much felt like Forza Horizon 4. The landscapes are beautiful. The graphics, I'm running it in, it's got both a performance and a quality mode. I'm running it in quality, so it locks at 30. It's responsive pretty well. Doing in performance, it runs nicely at 60. Again, this is on a PlayStation 5. Looking at reading through some Reddit threads and some posts and YouTubes about it over the course of the weekend, there's been some issues with the PC platform in terms of the stability. It's also running kind of slow on the Xbox Series S, but the PC seems to be the one where there's been a biggest challenge. And we've had plenty of other kind of challenging PC ports this year coming on the wake of what, Star Wars, Jedi Survivor, and many others. Can't think of them now, but yes. So potentially, hopefully, that the feedback here from the PC port being a little more than iffy, but struggling, means that they get a chance to kind of do that as well. So I think here's how the game breaks down, right? You have your map populates up. They have a series of playlists, so you can kind of go through a series of missions around similar themes. That there is a rally aspect, which has been a lot of fun. Some of the races I've had to try more than once in order to, get the line right and figure that out.
Is there a difficulty setting of any kind?
There are assists similar to Horizon, right? Like there is it breaks it down. When you start, it asks you to be like beginner, intermediate, and advanced in terms of how much assists that they will provide. But then once you get started, you can go in and tweak those steering assists, braking assists, things like that as well. So yes, so there is a difficulty. I was playing kind of on the normal, the median, intermediate difficulty as well, which also is probably why I got smoked a couple times, as I was struggling to steer around the road. But it is there's a kind of a Tokyo City street racing, kind of a Tokyo Drift Fast and Furious street racing playlist. There is in the beta, there's an electric car playlist, but you need to do a certain number of requirements to open that up. I haven't quite done that yet. I've played there's like a Hawaii tour where it takes you around a number of different scenic kind of off-road types of pieces. There's a rally. And then there's also, in this one, there is like they call it the Porsche 911 story. And so you're going through a series of street and track races and rallies using a variety of different Porsche cars. And so it's kind of a fun little story beat there as well. In the intro, they introduce you to a couple of other aspects, like basically like some Formula One cars in terms of track racing and pitting even. They introduce you to a specific Lamborghini exclusive series of events around a whole bunch of different Lamborghinis. So all of that, kind of plays out. You mark your map, very similar to Horizon. You drive around to get there. You get XP for drifting, but as a Horizon player that often just cuts through a cornfield, you don't get XP for destroying things like you do in Horizon. So that part gave me a little more incentive to try to stay on the road, maybe. But if I was looking to destroy things, I had a lot of fun with this last night. So the hook, just like in Riders Republic, they had kind of a multiplayer battle royale. But their Riders Republic one was like the big downhill, start on a bike or you start on skis, and then you transition between two different other kind of vehicles to get to the finish line. This is Battle Royale Demolition Derby. So okay. First off, I was excited about this. I am a Demolition Derby fan. I when I first dropped in and played this, I tried to drive in reverse because obviously that's the way you do it in a Demolition Derby is that you ram into somebody with your trunk, not with your engine, in order to stay alive a little bit more. I remember playing like a top-down, you know, sprint 1985 arcade Demolition Derby game, like a nice pixel-based piece. So yes, I was predisposed to appreciate the Demolition Derby aspect of this, and it is Fortnite Demolition Derby. You are so much so that rather than starting you on the ground in a car, you are flying your plane over the zone, which constricts like a typical battle royale does, and you choose where you're going to drop. And the funniest part of this is you are flying the plane, and when you drop, your car starts to just float down to the ground, right? It is not you dropping out. It is not your car on a platform with a parachute. It is just your car just dropping down. But you know what? Once you hit the ground, it's a lot of fun. So they have item drops, just like, not just like. So their item drops are there's like a shield, there's like an extra damage, there's an extra health. So you get a couple, like they drop these around the map, and if you pick them up, it does exactly what they do. But they can be, if you have the extra damage and somebody hits you, they can steal your extra damage to then hit somebody else with. So it is, you kind of get markers of where other people are. You spend a lot of time kind of driving around, trying to get these, and I was lucky enough to be in the top squad. You squad up with 3 other cars potentially. At one point, I was also unlucky enough to be one of the first squads rejected and smashed out of the race. But it was actually kind of a lot of fun. Like, really enjoyed that aspect of. I went back to it a couple different times. Like, it's more simplistic than something like Wreckfest, which is very much a deliberate kind of, demolition derby. This is drive around, smash into people. You have a health bar, you have some shields, and you can also get smashed pretty quickly. And it also is like you can kind of play the battle royale hide until the end type of way as well. Is kind of drive around the map, trying to avoid people until the zone actually becomes really tight at the very end in terms of a really small circle that you are enough space to kind of spin around and kind of take another pass at somebody, but it really condenses down quite a bit. So this is something similar to what they did with Riders Republic, right? This is something that spawns on a regular basis. It takes up to, I think it had like 24 players, 6 teams of 4. I think is what it did. But then it also kind of started games with fewer than that. So I started one game with a squad of 3. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of variety here in terms of street racing, rally racing, multiplayer, and then you also add in some boating and some planes. It's a really solid beta experience, right? I appreciate it a lot more. Really. I think it does. It's a much solider experience than the Crew 2. I think it's hard to make this comparison. I mean, it's hard to be successful on a platform where there's also Forza Horizon that's been around for quite a while and is part of Game Pass. But, I guess if you were a big Horizon fan and this fall the kind of hype and newness goes toward kind of Forza Motorsports in terms of the more track racing and less of the open world piece, maybe this becomes an option. I think for PlayStation 5 players and that don't have Horizon as an option, there's a really solid game here, at least behind what they're showing in the initial beta. So unlike my kind of disappointment with the Crew 2, I am very high on Motorfest. I think it could be a really solid experience, and obviously Ubisoft has shown that they'll support this for years on end. They're still supporting they're still supporting the Crew 2 to the point where all your vehicles in the Crew 2 will come over to Motorfest. So, there's a lot of incentive to, if this is a game type that you enjoy, this is going to be supported for a while.
So, is there an official release date for this? I know sometime in when.
Yes, it is mid-September,
Okay.
10th, 16th, somewhere around there.
Okay. I was just wondering. And then, um, what was your choice on PS5? Just maybe just the difference between that and Horizon, or
Yeah, I think it really was. I mean, I put in, like, when I signed up for the beta, I put in PlayStation 5. It was pretty much because it's not a platform that I have a similar game experience on. And so I was curious. And actually, the DualSense controller works really nicely with it, right? You get some sounds out of it. As you're shifting up and down gears, you get some click in your, as you're holding down the trigger for acceleration, you get the little click that tells you you're shifting gears, right? Like, so they do some nice things with the DualSense as well.
yes. And then I think you had already mentioned this, but there's known brand cars in here, right? Because I think you mentioned Porsche and Lamborghini.
Yes, this is very much a full-on branded car enthusiast type of piece. Yep.
Okay. And then there's something about the battle royale I was going to ask you about, but now I can't remember. Uh, that's all right. If I think about it later, I can bring it up.
Sure. No, I was really I didn't even realize there was a battle royale aspect in this. And so I was really surprised to see that, and it's a kind of creative way to go about it.
So when you're in the, and then I think I remember kind of what I was going to ask you. When you're in the battle royal, it's you're just out to get the other cars, right? There's no other objectives as far as you've seen so far.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, the mode that it is simply just smash into the other cars, take them out, stay in the play zone, and eventually, stay alive, just like any other kind of traditional Fortnite, Apex Legend type of battle royale.
Is there? No, you had mentioned that you when you first started out, you were driving backwards, obviously, because you want to protect yourself. But that didn't matter, or is it just like you have a health bar and you just when you get hit, it takes part of that off?
Yeah, you got a health bar when you get hit. Also, the camera doesn't compensate for you driving backwards, right? Like, you can't really swing it around. So, yes, you can drive backwards, but it's not really functional.
Yeah,
No, I mean, and in true battle royale fashion, like, they give you have your 30 seconds to load in while they're matchmaking players. So
Yeah.
I was able to figure that out before I got in the middle of a match and
Well, that's good.
got smashed right away trying to drive backwards. So, yep. No, it very much seems like the impact and damage you take is related more so to speed and if they have power ups or if you have power ups as well.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, it sounds like it'll be pretty fun.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, I would guess in Ubisoft fashion, this will be something that come late August. There'll be an open beta for it as well. So maybe it's something we jump on Xbox Series X with and see some of the multiplayer aspects as well. See how that compares.
Yep.
Yeah. So speaking of jumping on Xbox Series X and playing some multiplayer stuff, you have been playing some Back for Blood.
Yes.
So what brought you back into Turtle Rock and Back for Blood?
Yeah, so my one friend that I played everything with, he actually, he had picked it up a few months ago, and we had played it a few times, and he was like, he was kind of cold on it. But then just recently, the last couple weeks, he started playing it again. I think he just needed to wrap his mind around like the card system and stuff like that, and just kind of figure that out, because now he's kind of full into it. So we, along with another friend of ours, we were playing. We went through we got halfway through Act 1. We were playing. They started on Nightmare, which I didn't realize at first, because it wasn't too bad at first. And then I'm like, why? We got to a certain section that I remember from before. I'm like, why is there so many guys here and so many? More of the special, kind of the harder, not really bosses, but just characters and stuff like the blow up, the guys that blow up, and huge guy with like a big club arm basically and stuff like that. I was like, why are there so many people? And then I noticed it was on Nightmare. I was like, oh, all right. So we were going through Nightmare. We got, like I said, we got about halfway through. There was a section. There's not really like, I wouldn't say mini bosses, but there's just other sections where when you end that section, there's like, you know, a massive horde that you have to like kind of defend from. So we got to that point and we couldn't get past it. We tried a couple times and I think we actually just ran out of lives because I think at Nightmare you only have a certain amount, a really low amount, I should say. So we couldn't
So
get
with
past it.
Nightmare, is it the amount of health you have or the amount of damage that you take or give? I mean, what makes it kind of Nightmare compared to others?
Yeah, I think it. I think it's just the health because I didn't really notice anything with like with the ammo or. I did mention that it seemed like there was more people, but that might have been. We did have a full squad of four because we had like a random fourth person on our squad. So I mean that could have been because of that too. But yeah, I didn't really notice anything else that was lacking or you know that they kind of cut short or anything like that. So I think it was just like the health basically, and zombies might have been a little bit more spongy as far as when you're shooting them, but not nothing terrible though. Except for the bosses, obviously they're always going to be um, you know, just absorbing everything. But yeah, it was fun though. I like that like, he's getting back into it or he's getting into it now. So you know we could play it. We could play that a lot more. I know if we had trouble on that part because I remember the end of that Act One when you're on that boat and that was
Oh, the boat
terrible.
level. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that's gonna
Trying to
be
get those pieces down under the boat and not get swarmed. Yep.
that is definitely going to be a nightmare for sure when we do that part. But yeah, like I said, it's fun, and I got to go back in there. I got to tweak a bunch of cards because I haven't played for such a long time. So, and I think I had played with a few other people on a different server, Discord server, and I had to get a bunch of cards then too. So I got to kind of reconfigure. I had made like I think like 3 different loadouts that I can do. So I just got to go back and kind of reconfigure everything and just kind of figure things out. But it was fun. I like the game. Like I said, it reminds me just Left 4 Dead, but an evolution of Left 4 Dead, basically.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is a lot of fun with friends, right?
Yeah,
Like it is a difficult game to jump in and solo without a group, but it can be a whole lot of fun with a group of friends.
yeah. Oh, there was one thing I did notice, like in this game, you have those flock of birds. I think they're crows or something. If you get near them or if you shoot them, they bring
They
a
trigger off and yep, they
a
call
horde.
in others. Yep.
Yeah, but I was like near them, like I was like in game, like just a couple feet from them, and nothing triggered. When I remember before, like even if you weren't even that close to them, they would fly away and trigger the next horde. But so I don't know if that was just some weird glitch that just happened, but I think it happened like a couple times. So that was like the only weird thing I saw, or maybe I don't know, maybe in Nightmare they don't really do that really that easy just because it's already hard enough as it is. So it's just kind of weird.
Interesting. Well, I'm glad you guys are playing and enjoying, and probably means we'll get a few more Left 4 Dead stories.
Yep.
So, and really, Left 4 Dead on PC has been super cheap lately. I mean, it's been on discount. Like the Steam sale has been really discounted. So there's a lot of game there for the price that it's at. All right, Tal. Let's move into the news. Last week we had so much news to cover. We ended up not covering all of it. We got some of these stories that kind of bridge that gap of last week and this week's news story, but that's okay. Last week we had a ton to talk about around Microsoft, and truthfully, most of our news stories tonight still are Microsoft-ish. So, why don't you get started with the end of Xbox Games with Gold?
Yes.
So, Xbox Games with Gold started out kind of, I mean, Xbox Live has been around for quite a while. Xbox Games with Gold started out as, I remember it as being a response to PlayStation Plus and some of the free games that it was giving out late in the 2000s. What was it? Maybe Assassin's Creed 1 or 2 was one of the first games that was given out on Games with Gold back in the day, but now yeah, so go ahead, Kyle. Take us away here with this news story.
Yeah, so Games with Gold started back in July 2013. Speaking of 2013, again, once again, another anniversary of sorts here. But it's going to be replaced coming this fall, September 14th, or I guess I think it's still summer technically, or close to it. It's going to become Xbox Game Pass Core. Still be $10 a month, $9.99 a month, $59.99 a year. But you'll have access to, once again, still multiplayer. You can still do multiplayer through it, even though a lot of games lately, at least the free-to-play games, I don't think even need that anymore. You get a select collection of over 25 games to play with friends, and then you get, same as before, exclusive member deals, which you can just buy the games that you're playing. I don't know if it's just for these 25 or if it'll be for other games also, but they do have a list of the games, and I'll just run through them real quick, or some of them. You got Among Us, Dishonored 2, Doom Eternal, Fable Anniversary, Fallout 4, and Fallout 76, Forza Horizon 4, speaking of Forza, Gears 5, Grounded, Halo 5 Guardians, Halo Wars 2, Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, Human Fall Flat, Inside, Ori Will of the Wisps, Psychonauts 2, State of Decay 2, and Elder Scrolls Online, Tamriel Unlimited. So you got access to
if you've been listening, that's not 25, right?
Yeah.
And I read this as well when it came out, and I'm like, that is not 25 games. So, I mean, they are all from except from Among Us, right? I think everything else is from maybe Descenders.
Yeah, Descenders.
Everything else seems to be from a first-party Xbox studio. State of Decay, Bethesda, the Ori series, Double Fine, Hellblade. These are all within the Xbox family, which makes a whole lot of sense, like to put these out. So I'll be curious to see what the other kind of handful of 5 or 6 games ends up being.
Yeah, I wonder if I would say maybe they're third party, but I mean, you would have figured they would have put those in here, or I don't know, maybe those companies just didn't want to, be known that they're going to have those free games in there. Well, free-ish games, I should say. I shouldn't say really free games.
I think it makes sense that they're first, or kind of, that seems to be, you have the rights, you don't have to renegotiate anything. It ends up being a relatively straightforward piece. It also becomes kind of like your gateway drug to the full-on Game Pass, right? Like, this is $10 and you get 25 games, but for another $5, you can get 100 in some games. Like, it gets people in this mindset, people that haven't already kind of bought into the ecosystem of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, or just Game Pass, right? Ultimate is the one that has PC and console on it. That if you're not in that ecosystem, that this kind of gets you feeling like, oh, it is really nice to just have access to these games. It's an easy upgrade charge. I mean, I can see the kind of business sense logic of it here to move in this direction. And it's not a surprise. In some ways, it's a surprise that it took this long to kind of move off of the Xbox Live model. But there must be, I mean, I shouldn't say obviously. I would assume that there must be enough of a user base, the numbers must be high enough that they stayed in this model this long, and that they wanted to come out and provide a similar tier at a price point versus just discontinuing it and saying, yep, pay the extra $5, or here's a transition path. So there must be a pretty significant number of people on this schedule.
Yeah, and most of the ones that aren't first party, I think they're already on Game Pass or have been kind of off and on throughout the years anyways, so kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I remember you playing Descenders at one point when it was on Game Pass.
Yeah, I still jump into that, and I believe Human Fall Flat actually just came back to Game Pass not too long ago, or maybe at least sometime this year. So, yeah, it's the one thing though, which I kind of forgot after reading this article again. They say new titles will be added 2 to 3 times a year. So I wonder. They didn't say how many. That when that does happen, is it gonna be 25? Is it just gonna be like 2 or 3? So that'll be interesting to see how many games do get updated, and do they rotate out? I don't think it really said that in the article or not.
Right. I think that the language there is really interesting because it does not say titles will rotate 2 to 3 times a year. It says new titles will be added.
Yeah.
So it does seem like you could read into it that they're going to continue to add to this. Like, it could be a series, a handful of games a couple times a year. Like, here are your extras. But whether this becomes something like the, Nintendo Switch Online, where after 3 years, there's more games than there were there when it launched. How about that, right? Like, I feel like there's a nice critical mass, but I could see the argument. Like here, coming out of the gates with 25, being able to add another handful of them a couple times a year, you end up by year 2, you've got a pretty good solid base of things. So it could be, depending on the numbers, it could be a perfectly fine spot. Like there's a lot of game hours in these games, right? Like even if you're not going to take a online game, if you want to just do Dishonored 2 and Fallout 4 and Forza Horizon and Grounded, there is a lot of kind of offline deep play that can happen. State of Decay 2. And then you throw in some of the online games like Fallout 76 and Elder Scrolls. You've got, I don't know that anybody would say Halo 5 Guardians gives you a lot of online play at this point in time, but like there's a nice sampling of genres and styles here. So it's not a bad way to transition.
Yeah. And then just a couple of things at the bottom of the article. So Game Pass, or I'm sorry, Game Pass. Games with Gold will end on September 1st, which means there's like a 2-week period where there's nothing there. I'm assuming people will still have access to all that stuff. I guess it doesn't really say. And then you'll continue to have access to the Xbox One games they previously redeemed through Games with Gold if they remain a Game Pass Core or Game Pass Ultimate member. And then regardless of subscription status, Xbox 360 games redeemed via Games with Gold in the past will be kept in your library. So that's nice. I guess older games, not too bad.
I didn't realize that if you had redeemed a 360 game that it would stick around.
Yeah,
Oh.
so that's pretty good. Yeah, pretty good.
All right. Yeah,
So that's four
be
now.
interesting to
Four
see
different
what that.
subscription tiers, I guess, if you want to call it that. The core,
Yeah.
console, PC, and then Ultimate.
Yep. Yep. And again, basically,
So
yeah. And Ultimate is now gone up to 17 or
yeah,
17.99.
17.99. Yeah, PC is
Yep.
still 10.
18.
Yeah, core is 10, and then consoles 11. Just
Yeah.
console. And then, how many is? Do you remember how many PlayStation? Don't they have 4 too, or is it 3? It's 3 or 4. I know that.
PlayStation has, I guess technically, it has 3.
3. Okay.
Your kind of what was the former baseline with a few games, 3 games every year and online play. And then you have mid tier, which has a series of PlayStation 4 games with it. And then you have the top tier that has PlayStation 5 and streaming PlayStation 3 games. Over the past few months, they've also added in PSP games that have like now running on basically PlayStation 4. A lot of the PSP games are games that also came to PlayStation 2 um, that are now running on basically PlayStation 4 as well. So that was one of the things I did back in June was upgrade. I had probably 2 years paid of the general PlayStation, and it ended up being about $5 a month for 2 years to jump all the way up to the top tier. So did that, and I've been playing back through a number of kind of PlayStation 1 and 2 games and PSP games. So not a bad. I don't know that since I had already prepaid, I don't feel bad about paying an extra $5. If it was paying you know, what does it end up being? The $20 a month or so for the top tier of the PlayStation piece. I know that I don't play enough games to make it worth it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gameplay there. So, and it's also one of those things where if you are new, I think the Xbox is the same way. That if you are new into this ecosystem, this is a great way to get in. If you have been building up and buying games over the years, you have a lot of these things you have many of these things that are now free as well.
Yeah. I didn't realize the console only subscription didn't have the EA Play membership included in it. So that's interesting. Just PC and Ultimate have that.
Huh. I didn't realize that either because
Yeah.
yeah, once it was such an easy upgrade to Ultimate because it was such a small amount, and Then also, at that time when they added in EA, you had the conversion rate of
Oh yeah,
like 2 to 3 to 1
yeah, for
to
gold. Yeah.
yep. So all right, well let's move to another well, potentially soon to be Microsoft story related to some Activision games. Activision Blizzard, actually Blizzard itself has announced that they are moving some games, or bringing some games, I should say, not moving them, but bringing some games also to the Steam platform. And starting on August 10th, which coincides with the next season of Overwatch 2, that Overwatch will also be playable and downloadable on Steam, and that their plan is to bring over a number of other games from the BattleNet launcher as well. So this feels, I mean, the timing of this came out shortly after the FTC ruling and the CMA kind of extension and the deadline that we were talking about last week in terms of the agreement. And you get this article, which obviously has been in the works prior to this announcement. I mean, it coincides nicely with this announcement in terms of messaging. So potentially it was kind of held on in terms of showing that we are bringing games to a wider audience rather than trying to lock things down onto our platforms. It will be interesting to see what this means. I mean, you know, it's been a number of years at this point since Call of Duty has been on both Steam and BattleNet. Bringing over Overwatch means that potentially then bringing over Diablo 4 as well ends up being something that they would do. I think an interesting question will be if this is something they do for new games moving forward or kind of current games, or do they start porting over some other things as well? Like, does Diablo 3 start to work? Do you get past versions of, I mean, be interesting to see. Many of the things that I was starting to think of, like past versions of Call of Duty, which are also on Steam, or uh, Crash Bandicoot, which is also on Steam. So it really is more of some of the Blizzard pieces. Overwatch, Diablo, StarCraft, maybe? Do they go into converting that? And then I think, your big one is, does World of Warcraft end up being something that has you know, it has its own launcher. So even if you launch it, and there's a number of other MMO games on Steam that even if you launch them from Steam, they still, I mean, it tracks your hour count and things like that, but it still ends up launching the client of that MMO. So I don't know. I mean, it, it fits in with the stories from last week. I don't know that it really tells us a whole lot more, or is a slow news week. That's all I can say. Tyler, any thoughts on this one?
No, I think you pretty much, yeah. It kind of just makes sense that since they already have other Activision Blizzard stuff on there, well, Activision stuff, like I said, like Call of Duty. Like Call of Duties, I think have been on sale like every other week. It seems like, or at least once a month.
Well, I
For a
mean,
while,
on platform or another, it's been on sale. Yep.
yeah. So, well, I mean, yeah, it's getting to the end of the year too, so it'll be time for the new one to come out soon. Um, but yeah, I don't think there's uh, too much going on here.
Okay, so our last news story was one that we did not cover last week. In the midst of all the Xbox FTC, Activision Blizzard acquisitions, we had an announcement from one Larry Herb. So this is Tom. I'm going to let you take this because you have been an Xbox gamer longer than I have, and I'll let you speak to it. But this is significant. I feel like I'm glad that we get a chance to talk about this. This is a very significant contribution that we should celebrate and acknowledge. So
Yeah.
I'll let
So
you.
sorry. So yeah, Larry Herb, aka Major Nelson, on most social media platforms. Actually be leaving Microsoft. I don't know if I actually gave an exact date or not, or I don't see here. I think just sometime this summer or after the summer. He's leaving after 22 years with Xbox. His official title is director of programming. So he did a lot of that. He was in charge of all like the media that came out for like podcasts and all the audio stuff and stuff like that. Obviously, he's had a podcast for a long time, which I did listen to. I've been listening to. There's been, other hosts that have come and gone, and it's just kind of sad because I mean he's always been he always seemed to be, I should say. I never met the man myself, but he always seemed to really down to earth, like really nice guy. He gave credit to all the other systems too. When they were bringing stuff out, it was he was never, as far as I could tell, he was never negative on anything, in the Xbox or just gaming related, in general. So it's just kind of sad that he'll be leaving. There's some speculation because of all the layoffs and stuff that have been happening. Maybe that was part of it, but I mean I don't know. He obviously he himself just says he's moving on to the next chapter of his life. So whatever that may be, but we'll have to see in the coming months what happens, or coming weeks, what he's gonna be doing. I know he came from like I think radio and stuff like that, so maybe goes back and does that. That's kind of where he started. So it's like I said, it's sad, but unfortunately people kind of come and go, especially I think in the video game industry. And maybe you might not have thought about that just because he wasn't in like he wasn't developing games. Basically he was more on the media side. So but he's been, I think, a very important part of Xbox, and kind of just getting the word out, and just interacting with fans and stuff at different events. So it's kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, he's been foundational for kind of the Xbox brand shortly after launch, right? He was here before the 360 launched, right? Like it's been, and he was very much the face of and voice of Xbox in the 360 era. Like that is where, and that's where not only where he kind of built his reputation and awareness, but also where the gaming industry started building that as well. Like social media started changing, the online aspects of things started changing. The generation of 360 and PlayStation 3 is drastically different from a communication and um, kind of the visibility that it was in the PlayStation 2, GameCube, Xbox era. And I think really Major Nelson was such a factor in that, in terms of having a voice, being kind of a central voice for a corporate platform to some degree, and not in like a corporate shill type of way, but very much in a way that so many gamers throughout the 2000s really identified and connected with. And also I think he the way that what he was doing has been adopted in so many other places at this point in time, right? Like what he was doing at the time of 2006, 2007, when there were still print magazines and websites were still, heavy, and gaming journalism was so much kind of, it was starting to make that transition, right? 2008, 2009, we start to see some of those layoffs. But Major Nelson was out there kind of being that direct voice and bringing that information right from the publisher to people without necessarily going through. And it's not like Xbox was cutting out games journalism, but he was starting this platform, this voice, this interaction with a community that was not being done by any other game developer or any other platform holder. You know, X, PlayStation, Sony, Nintendo with GameCube, and then the Wii. And the Wii started this with a little bit, started to do some of these direct like aspects, which were very much in that idea and a response to what Larry Herb has done in terms of being the face and voice of a gaming platform. So yeah, I think he has a lot to be we have a lot to be thankful for in terms of how he changed the landscape of communication within games journalism and games media. And he should have a lot to be proud of within those years as well. And you know, this is where the grumpy old man aspect of this podcast comes in, is like I miss those days a little bit, right? The simpler times, and the lack of saturation of everybody. Like, you had a lot fewer platforms to get this information from, where it's such a broad and diverse, which is a good thing in terms of where to find that information, where to get the access. You're getting a lot more perspectives, but it is difficult to kind of sift through in the same way that it was 15 years ago as well.
Yeah, I know. Other than his podcast, and obviously he's huge, social, like I said, social media presence. He would do like a kind of like a weekly show. I think it started back on the 360. I think kind of took a hiatus during the Xbox One when it first came out, and then on the Series X they kind of started back up, kind of tail end of the Xbox One. A new show, basically a weekly show. But like you're saying, now that we're just inundated, with all this information, like I pretty much didn't watch that show anymore. Like once it started back up, just because I actually would watch it because back in the day, because I would learn about stuff, and yeah, I was on the internet, but I wasn't nearly watching all the the game sites and all that like I do now. And it was just kind of fun watching, every week. Oh, what's new on Xbox, and they'd have other stuff on just kind of general gaming too, which is kind of nice. But yeah, it was just kind of a cool thing. And now, like you said, grumpy man time. It's like, yeah, I wish it was still kind of like that, but obviously there's just too many places you can get information for now, and maybe that's another reason he's kind of trying to go find something else, just kind of do something different, possibly too.
Yeah, I mean the market has changed, and so it makes sense to try to figure out what comes next. So I wish him, as we all do, wish him all the best. I'm very thankful for those contributions.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move into our gaming roundup here. We not a whole lot to talk about. Like last week, I did say I was going to dive back in and play some more. I did say I was going to dive back in and play some more Exoprimal, but guess what? That didn't really happen. I played a few more rounds and went, yeah, okay. And then I played a lot more of MLB The Show. But really, what I spent a lot of time this week playing is I finally got a chance to play Lego 2K Drive. So it came out in May. It was announced early in 2023 and kind of came out 2 months later. So this is 2K Drive. This is by Visual Concepts. It's an open world kart racer, Lego style. It is. You have an off-road vehicle, street vehicle, and a boat, and it does auto transforms as you drive. So if you go off the road, it switches into another vehicle. If you run into water, it switches into the other vehicle. There's a toggle in the menu to shut off auto transformation, which I don't know if that means that it shuts off the animation or you have to physically push a button to transform. I haven't played with it that much, but I have been playing with it enough to. You start with kind of a standard, small little standard island or map and kind of biome zone, and there are three others at least at this point, and I've unlocked two of the three. And the third one is kind of like a lava volcano-y type of one. The tone of it is perfectly Lego. That if I had kids in elementary and middle school, this game would hit resoundingly with them. Like, it's a little tongue in cheek. It's kind of cartoony. It's got this, it's got the Lego movie type humor to it. It is fully voiced, but it is kind of self-aware in some of its like tongue-in-cheekiness. It's done well from that sense of humor. I said exactly that to my 18-year-old son, And I said, if you were in elementary school, I could totally see you enjoying this. And he said, I could totally see myself enjoying this right now. So, like, it is like where it is targeted in terms of its tone, it is not necessarily locked to there in terms of its gameplay. So he and I have both been playing quite a bit of it. It is it's going back to the Crew Motorfest, going back to Forza Horizon. It is very much in this vein of here's a map with all kinds of different activities to do. Like there are closed circuit races that you have to do to kind of progress the story, but there are wide open. You can drive through a gate and hit a speed zone that you need to race around a barnyard in. Or today I had to catch rockets and bring them back to the alien, to the no, not the alien, to the astronaut Lego person. I did have to race an alien in another side quest. So right, like there are a whole bunch of different kind of side quests, and you need these side quests because they give you XP, and your progression through the story is gated by your level. So at level 14, 12, maybe, I could hit the first kind of big race. You need to win 3 big races to get to the final race in the sky, right? Like this is your story beat. But there is so much other story going on. All these little side missions have like little character beats, little stories around them, helping the police officer in the Lego town track down a criminal, which really means like busting up their car until it breaks apart and then they can't drive anymore. And this is such a nice touch as well that when you get hit, your car busts up a little bit, but as you drive through, like you drive through a fence, you drive over a tree, you drive through something else, all the bricks fall apart and your car builds itself back up. So if you are taking damage, you need to just make some more damage in order to grab some bricks. So it's a lot of fun there. The gameplay, it is, you've got to drift like you would in most kind of kart racers, but it doesn't give you like a boost like you would get in kind of a kart racer, right? Like it has a drift in terms of holding down your left trigger, and it has a handbrake to make a hard turn, but it doesn't necessarily give you a boost. But you do have a boost meter, which gives you like rockets on the side of your vehicle, which is helpful in terms of it's your nitro boost, right? From like a burnout. It is that type of aspect. But it also is helpful because of the landscape of some of these. Like you need to take a jump and get up high to hit something. And those having those rockets helps become one of those pieces. So I think one of the knocks on it that I read when it first came out in May was that it became kind of grindy. And I'm kind of in that spot. Like I'm at level 14 right now, and I need to get to level 16 to hit the next kind of circuit Grand Prix race. And then level 24 is the third circuit Grand Prix race in order to get to your final race. And so I don't have any other. Right now, I need to kind of move around the map and take down, do a number of side quests. And to me, that the map is so populated that there's so many options. I don't have to do all of these in order to get some XP. I have to take on some, more repopulate. Like I thought that the grindiness, and this comes from a NBA 2K player. Like I was expecting kind of the virtual currency, the VC grind of getting getting my tires or my acceleration or my engine faster so that I could get enough to race. Like the grind of one of the knocks that I have run into with the Disney Motorsport game from Gameloft is once you get into a race where you are a few levels below, doesn't matter how good how good your driving skills are, your top speed and is going to be slower than everybody else because you are not at that level. So this feels like, yeah, okay, so it was not the type of grind that I was expecting, but it was the kind of grind of like, yeah, go play the game. You can't do a race yet, so go explore this big world and have some fun. And in a lot of ways, that should be what Lego's about, right? Is kind of this exploration. Like you're finding all these different sets and cars, and you've got the ability to kind of play around with different vehicles. And even looking at, yes, there is a store where you can buy vehicles, but I looked through it all over this weekend, in part because I had unlocked, they had like some server crash or, offline piece. So they gave you a bunch of free virtual bucks. I'm like, okay, well, let's see what's there. I was looking to see, like, okay, so where are the pay to win? Like, there are tiers. There's your gold, purple, blue, your kind of rarity vehicles. But even in the gold version of those vehicles, they they're not plus to all your stats. Like you've got a top speed, you've got an acceleration, you've got a handling, and you've got a life bar and how much damage you can take. So no vehicle that I was able to see in the store at this point has plus to all your stats. So there's always a trade off. Like, yes, you may want something with more top speed, but it's going to have less health, or something with better handling, but it's going to have like you have light, heavy, medium classes as well. So I was surprised in a positive way. Like I was expecting this to be like, yeah, okay, this is, they've got a microtransaction aspect here that's going to try to push you into this direction. And it really seems like the microtransactions are there as like, here's a different vehicle if you want to play around with something. Here's some different vehicle parts that if you want to add, there's garages where you can build your own vehicle and go to a test track. Um, and it has pretty good physics. Like my son and I, like our first vehicle, we try to make a real vehicle. Like you can make up to like 350 bricks that you can put on the vehicle before you kind of max out. But you can also like you have a high vertical space, you have a wide vertical space. So we like made everything heavy on one side or made it really tall. And so every time you turn, it would just kind of wobble or it would kind of lean to one side. So it would just kind of swerve. So there is some physics there. It's balanced enough that you can make something really stupid like we did. And it's not just going to tip over your car and not let you drive. Like it's always going to try to keep it somewhat drivable, but it is going to incorporate however goofy kind of reindeer antlers you ended up building on your car to make it tip to one side or the other. So I am I'm a lot higher on this game than I expected it. Like I really liked the idea of it when it first came out, and then reading some of the reviews of it was like, oh, okay, well, I could see where, knowing what I know about NBA 2K, I could see where this goes kind of bad. But now playing it, there's a lot here to like, and it's now just starting to hit some of those like 20% off sales. Like by the time we get into the fall, it's gonna hit further and deeper sales. Like there's a lot of game here, and I don't know that it is. We haven't seen what the season passes end up like what types they add to it. But if they continue to create, they've got a sound engine. They've put a lot of care into the license, so I think that can take them a long way. And by the nature of it being cognizant of the audience that's going to play it, they are not pushing you into microtransactions in the same way that NBA 2K does, or even NBA, even PGA 2K23. Like there are microtransactions in there to the point that kind of pushed me away after really loving 2K21 as well. So this is probably why I came very hesitant to 2K Drive, and coming away sounding and feeling a whole lot more positive of it than expected.
Yeah, it was interesting to get your take on it because that was one I was actually looking forward to. I kind of forgot about it, to be honest with you. As I said, it's not like you know microtransaction driven. You can it's kind of all games unfortunately right now, or at least these type of games, kind of live service games. But just going back, I was looking at their kind of pedigree of games. Like after the mid '90s, they pretty much were just sports. You know, all the NBA 2K and
Yeah,
NFL
with
and
visual
NHL.
concepts. Yep.
Yeah, they were just doing all those. So it's just kind of interesting. Fun fact: they did clay fighters back in the day. If you remember that gem. But no, I
Yep.
was just looking out there. They was just pretty much, and then they were just doing mostly just like kind of WWE stuff and NBA the last few years. So I
Yeah,
think
it's a really solid. I mean, it's a solid driving game. Like, it's fun. Like, it is not realistic, but you're driving a Lego car over a bunch of Lego areas. It's not going to be realistic, but it has the physics. It feels responsive. I have even some of the races. I have sometimes I need to run them more than once, right? So once you get a line and try to figure out where the course is, but you get power ups along the way with races. Like, yeah, it deserves. I think it kind of got buried at the start of summer, but hopefully it gets another kind of pass and some promotion coming into the fall. And it certainly seems like it'd be a great kind of holiday birthday gift for, as my 18-year-old son pointed out, children of all ages.
that's right. So can you customize like any of the cars, or just like the ones you just go in there and build your own?
So you can go in and build your own, and then you can win preset cars, like different types of vehicles, and then you could actually go buy those as well. So,
Okay.
but you can basically build your own. You can get
Can you
you
customize
can,
those ones that you like buy or unlock, or do you know?
I do not know.
Okay, I was just wondering. Just kind of goof around with that kind of stuff.
I think you might be able to. I think you might be able to add some flair on them or something like that.
Just cosmetic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't hear your audio anymore. I don't know if you can hear me. It's kind of weird.
Good. I'm
Oh,
back
there
here.
we go. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Sorry, you were
Sorry about
saying.
that, which is
No, no.
good. You missed me kind of rambling around, so that's perfectly fine. No, right? It does seem like there are some ways you get like flair, but then also a number of different pieces that you unlock pieces as you go through different races and things like that, and also through the store. So yeah, like there are some hooks here. Like if you wanted to have everything right off the bat, there you would have to sink some money into it. But
Yeah.
if it is something where you just kind of want to play around for a while and see what you get, and what they give you for vehicles are well-rounded vehicles, that it's not like they give you a vehicle that doesn't have the ability to compete. It becomes much more about your skill set than it is about the vehicles at this point. So, which is good.
On the customization side, excuse me. Do you have like access to like the full suite right away, or do you unlock stuff? Can you buy stuff and stuff like that, or how's
So
it
you
work?
have access to a pretty well, from the beginning it looks pretty overwhelming, like a number of different parts. Like you start with a handful of different kind of chassis frameworks, and then a lot of different types. I didn't count how many pieces, but you have kind of standard brick pieces, you have curved, the smooth edge, sloped brick pieces. You've got some of the brick pieces that will socket into each other. You've got kind of flare brick pieces like your flowers or some other things that can put on the top and the sides. So there is a pretty good amount, but as you play more things, you continue to unlock other aspects. So there you may not be able to build exactly what you want right away, depending on how familiar you are with Lego pieces and what kind of car you're trying to create. They do have like instructions where if you follow all the instructions for a certain build and don't skip any steps, you get some bonus points or cash or things like that as well. So it feels very much in this like it did with Lego Dimensions, right? Like you were putting together these sets to kind of play with in a very Lego type of way, which makes sense in this case. Like, yeah, part of the fun of Legos is building stuff. And so it gives you a pretty robust builder aspect. I don't know. I know that I don't have the patience to build something that would be good to use in the rest of the game, but I would bet that you could create some really interesting and fun vehicles uh, with the amount of time. And I haven't, it's connected online. It looks like you can share some types of pieces, but I haven't kind of dug into that so much as well. It does have local player, two-player co-op or split screen, and it does have online player like match races as well. So there's a lot of functionality here.
But you never see like other players in the big, like the open world area, right?
No, it is instance
Just
off
single.
a whole different launcher. I mean, it ends
Oh,
up being like it is not a true motorsport Forza Horizon type of world where everybody's driving around in the same space. It is
yeah.
you're playing this zone, you're playing the story, but if you want to play multiplayer, you do what you do like in a Mario Kart, right? You're
Okay.
going to a specific
It's just the tracks.
menu. Yep,
Did you
yep,
try out
you're
the
going.
multiplayer at all? Or?
No, I have not yet.
No. Okay.
Nope.
Just wondering.
So all right. Yeah. Thanks for letting me gush a little bit about a game that I've been looking forward to but kind of was hesitant on. So yeah, 2K Lego 2K Drive was definitely very enjoyable. You have looks like here like you're did you not update your games or are you still
No.
playing kind of your mobile games from last week? Which
Yeah.
no offense, because I'm still playing a mobile game from, let's say, last August. So it seems very possible that that is the nature of mobile games.
Yeah. Yeah. Once again, I didn't have like a whole lot of time this past week, so I was still went ahead, just sit on my couch or whatever. Wife's watching something, and nothing. Technically, I really want to watch. Just, I'm on mobile games, so once again, going through Balloons TD6. Still on. Actually, think I'm still on the first stage. I think it's like 60 rounds you go through. About 40, maybe 45 now. There's like I guess like a mini boss or a boss that they throw at you at one point. It's like this big giant, like Zeppelin, air balloon that kind of starts to go around the track. But it actually took me probably like 3 or 4 or 5 tries to get that down. I had to start adding more characters, more monkeys onto my board. So I was doing that, and then just now it's just they kind of pop up every now and then. It was kind of like I said, like a mini boss at first. Now it's just kind of a thing that they throw at you now. So I gotta be a little bit more tactful, and actually. So this was through Netflix. So my son actually downloaded on his phone, watched him play, and he is like, I don't know if he started watching videos or if he can just like figure things out faster than me because he's like just taking that thing down like that.
This is the way you do it, Dad. You
Yeah.
got to build here and build here, and then this one triggers here.
Well, it's interesting because like it's like the track goes through the whole map obviously, and I was putting things along the whole track that the balloons go through in the big airship goes through, but he like front loaded everything like where they come in. So I was like, oh, that's an interesting strategy there. So maybe I'll try doing that a little bit more. So you learn things from your kids, as vice versa. So doing
Yes,
that,
you do.
yeah.
Yep.
So obviously your kid, 18, but he still wants to play Lego games, so that's good. And then obviously the other one is Baseball 9. Been pretty much every day once again going through my Pro 2 or 3 now. I can't remember what version I'm on or what level I'm on in that game, but actually I think it's 3 because I beat the Pro 2 championship a couple weeks ago. Just going through the new season for that. So it's starting to get a lot harder actually. I'm playing a lot. So now, and I think I might have mentioned this before. So when you do the new season, or when you hit the pro, you get like 160 games you have to go through for a season. I think before in rookie it was only like 20, maybe 30 or something like that. So now you can, like I said, I was using the little energy things that they give you, like lightning bolt powers that you can just say I don't want to play through the whole game. I'll just hit that and it plays it for me and sims it. So I've been doing a lot more of that, and when I do that, I'll just keep doing that until I lose, and then I'll actually start playing the game. But even those games I'm playing, like it's getting pretty hard to start to throw a lot more the higher tier kind of characters because I think everybody on my team.
But if you buy a pack for
That's
$3.99,
right.
it's gonna be so much better.
I'm not gonna do that though. Still just gonna use the in-game currency. I think everybody except for one character or one person on my team is still a default level. So everybody else is either bronze or I think I have one silver and then one gold. Excuse me, on my team. So I'm just like working till that. Like I said, there's multiple different currencies you get, like recruit tickets, and you get other tickets for just like cosmetic stuff like uniforms and stuff like that. So I'm just working through that. I mean, that's fine. As you play the games, it's even when you sim the games, you still get like those rewards. So it's kind of nice. You don't get as much money when you sim the games, but you still get whatever reward as long as you win at the end of that. So just playing through that. So yeah, and then just my Fortnites and Rocket Leagues as I play those here and there throughout the week. So
That's fair, right? Like my normal is a couple games of Madden and NBA 2K. So
yeah,
yep,
what's
just
the
chip away.
mobile game you're playing?
Oh, I mobile game I've been playing is I've been playing. I play Madden on mobile. Like it's a quick little like pass and run and play some defense, and
Okay,
starts up mid August is when the new season starts.
nice.
I've also with the Women's World Cup, I went back to Retro Goal. The Retro Bowl developer did a 16-bit one a couple years ago of Retro Goal,
Yeah,
and which also Retro Bowl and Retro Goal in June came on Apple Arcade, like the unlock
oh,
mode of them. So yeah, so I've been playing some mobile soccer or
nice.
mobile football in both capacities. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I ever tried the soccer one. I did the Retro Bowl for a while actually.
Soccer one's really fun. It's a little harder
Yeah,
in terms of balancing a team because of the way like contracts work and player pricing and everything else works. Like it is harder to build and sustain a team than it has been for me in Retro Bowl.
yeah.
Um, but it's fun. I enjoy it. And actually, New Star Games just this week or next week is coming out with on Steam like a Formula One type of racer as well, kind of in the virtual what is it? Virtual racer, like the Sega arcade, the kind of early polygon aspects,
Oh
kind
yeah,
of right
yeah. I
in
remember what
that
you're talking
kind
about.
of visual aspect. But
Yeah,
so I'm looking forward to that. Kind of that's been a studio that they do good games. They're relatively simple but deep, and
nice.
so to have them dive into after after talking about nothing but racing games on this podcast, to have them dive into another racing game, like yeah, I could try that. Yep. Anything this coming week that you're looking forward to? We have the Mickey and Disney Illusion 4-player game for Illusion Island coming out for Switch. We have Remnant 2 coming out. Anything on your radar, Tao?
Nothing newer, but we were talking about, or we mentioned Elder Scrolls Online. I think I'm going to be jumping into that with my friend because it went free on Epic Store, so he's like, oh yeah, now I'm going to play it. So I'm like, oh okay, because I think I had
Nice.
mentioned it before, and he's like, yeah, I don't know about that if I want to play like pay for that game, but now it's free, so we'll get to play it together. So
Yeah, I would bet. I mean, from what I've read and from what I remember picking it up on launch and playing for a little while. So, yeah, there's a lot there to play
yeah,
and enjoy.
I played a little bit on Xbox when it finally came on there on through Game Pass. But I just didn't have anybody to play with, so I was like, I kind of got bored of it, just because it's not fun to be running around with
Yep, it
trying to find
definitely
people and stuff. So,
definitely makes a difference to have people to play with.
yep.
So, all right. Well, that has been episode 300 for the Enough to Keep Going podcast for the week of July 23rd. We'll be back again next Sunday to talk about probably some Elder Scrolls Online. It sounds like probably some other things, and probably some news as well, as we always do around this time. So, thank you for dialing in and joining us, watching us, listening to us, whether you are on the go, whether you are sitting and grinding through something in front of a screen, or whether you are just joining us in our pursuits, talking about things that we enjoy. And we encourage you to join us as well and share your perspective. Most Sundays, we are coming to you live as well on YouTube and are thankful for everybody who joins us there. So for myself, DBQhams and Taomaster99, this has been episode 300 of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. Until next time, play the games you love. Love those you play with. Take care of yourselves. Good night, everybody.